New, old, doesn't matter. Welcome, everybody. We've got Saul Klein, John Reilly. Saul, where are you out of?
I'm I'm out of San Diego. I was going to say I'm sitting on an 18th century schooner in the captain's cabin.
In San Diego.
AI.
You
That's
always
funny.
wanted to be an admiral,
John,
you
how
know.
about you, buddy?
I'm not at the beach today, you know. It's kind of a rainy day, so that's why my background is changed.
I like it. Either way, it
Yeah.
looks great. It looks great either way. All right, give us an update, either one of you, on where we're at with Compass versus Zillow, Compass versus, I think there was another one, what was it? The NWMLS. Just an update where we're at with both.
Well, the Northwest MLS is at a stage now where they're past the motion to dismiss. It's an active case, so they're into discovery, which is going to be where they're going to discover a lot of interesting facts. And I think that the claims made against Northwest that they're monopolistic. Uh, so it's going to be kind of a heated lawsuit. The uh, the Compass one, you know, was dismissed voluntarily, and it now though has moved into where Compass is now involved going after Zillow and Myrit, and so that one is going to be another interesting one to follow, as well as the update. Nothing new on the Togashi case, which is the buyer agency case in which NAR had come up with a $152,000 million settlement offer, which people have to opt into. We kind of covered this on the
Previous
previous
one. Yep.
episode. And one other thing that in the previous episode, when it got to the end of it, you asked me to, could I somehow take Saul's infographic and the 10,000 word article he had behind it and condense it down into one page. And I have to apologize, Tristan. I was not able to do that. But we did come up with a great we did come up with a great idea of turning those into now shorter little articles and develop them into kind of a series that we can produce and
Okay.
to and that's where we'll convert that to.
Yeah, so
Perfect. I love that, man.
I think it's
Saul,
yeah.
when we're
I
looking
was
at where we're at right now, because both of you are not only living it, you helped get us here to where we're at with all the changes, all the help, whether it was on the board or the legal side. We're at a crossroad. I know you guys created this article, and just as important, you made this really great graphic. You made it with AI, but you redid it, and it just looks amazing. And we're at a point where things are going to change, but I don't know that people understand what are the things that we need to look at for us to see the changes happening.
Yeah, so it's hard to even know where to begin, right? And so what we thought was we would write a paper and turn the paper into a graphic, and that this graphic really is like 50,000 or 100,000 feet, right? To look at the
Mm,
whole of the industry. And what we determined in our mind is there's these five major things to look at, which will have a direct impact one way or another on the future of residential real estate sales. And so if we
got it.
can isolate to begin with these five different things, then it'll help us look at everything as it starts to flow at us. We can put it into
Mm,
categories. And so the first one is litigation. So we know and John started out by talking about all this different litigation that's going on. And this
okay.
litigation is going to, just like the Sitzer Burnett litigation resulted in a major change in the industry, that this litigation is going to have change and affected and change the industry over the next couple of years. So litigation and primarily antitrust litigation. So we need to be
Got it.
real alert as to the antitrust litigation. And then there's
Okay.
legislation because what has happened in some states is legislators are looking at the MLS and viewing information into the MLS as a necessity for consumers. And so some brokers want to hold the data out of the MLS for a while, and others want it to go into the MLS right away. And so the
Yeah.
states are getting involved. And so we're seeing legislation. And so this legislation will have an effect on the practice of real estate in the next
Okay.
couple of years. And then there's regulation, because if we don't do it right, the DOJ and the FTC might get involved. Although we know with the change of leadership in the real estate area of the DOJ, maybe there won't be as much enforcement as people think there'll be. So litigation, legislation, regulation, and then innovation and AI. And
Ooh.
how does that work into it? So innovation is going to change. And Tristan, I know you're a leader in this area, right? And how you utilize AI in your real estate practice. And
Mm.
so innovation and particularly AI, and then consolidation. And so we're seeing brokerage firms consolidate. We're seeing associations of realtors consolidate. We're seeing multiple listing services consolidate. And so if we kind of watch the news around those five things, litigation, legislation, regulation, innovation, and consolidation, we'll have a good understanding of what's going on in the industry. And that'll help people who are trying to map their future. Right? We
Mm.
used to have this saying, you can't plan for the future from the present. You have to get out into the future. And only from the future can you plan for it. And so that's what we want to do. We want to help people look at the elements that will affect the future of real estate so it'll help them
Mhm.
plan for today.
Makes sense, man. So then you've got five future scenarios under here that we talked about last time we did this, but take us through these five different scenarios because I think that's where inside of lab code agents and other communities, we keep on hearing things like just get back to work. This doesn't matter. This is a distraction. We keep on hearing that. And just from being here and chilling with you guys for a while now, it all matters, but some of us don't see it. So help me understand the five futures and how these affect the industry.
Yes, I'll go first and then John can jump in. So we can see a future where things kind of remain the way they are with everybody getting along, right?
Okay.
Coexistence,
Easy.
where people figure out, yeah, nothing's going to change so much with the structure, but everybody's going to figure out how to get along around the data.
Okay. Okay.
And then there's a future where portals become more dominant. Now, if you go to other parts of the world, the portals are very, very important and very dominant because they don't have MLS. But
Yep.
the portals could become more dominant, especially if they're seen as places where it's like public access. And so the listing data almost becomes like a public utility where everybody should be, able to see it. And the easiest place to see it are on these giant portals.
Yes,
The next one's a
definitely.
little bit fuzzy for me. Fragmentation. So that's a piece where we go to pretty much like it is in the rest of the world, where brokers have finally and this goes for all of this, brokers have finally realized that there's value in the listing, and now everybody's fighting for control over the listing. And it used to be nobody doubted that there was value in the listing. We all knew there was value. And we mentioned this in a previous broadcast where, I knew agents that took overpriced listings on busy streets, not because they thought they'd sell them, but because they thought people might call on them. And it's somebody who calls on it, that's a lead. And so your listings were a marketing asset that generated leads, and we gave that away to the portals about 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yep.
And now brokers are saying, we got the technology. Maybe we have a system where the listings go first and we keep them if we can, and we sell them if we can. And if we can't, then we move them to the next level. So that's a fragmentation and siloing of data, and that's a possible future. Uh, the next one is really kind of blurry. Can you read it, John Reilly? Oh, regulatory reset. Yeah, and that looks less probable now with the change to the leadership in the real estate section of the DOJ. But it could be that the DOJ and the FTC view the listing data as so important to consumers that we can't have it fragmented and we can't have it differ state to state. And the regulators come in and set the rules, which they've done before.
Yep.
And then the last one is innovation, where there are new techniques and new ways to list and sell and display that we haven't necessarily thought of yet, but innovation and in particular AI is going to lead the way. And by the way, I heard somebody say the other day, and it's something I heard a while back, and that is not artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence.
Interesting. Okay, I like
Right?
that.
Is that you still need the human being in many cases, but they're augmented by the AI, by what we call AI. We call it artificial intelligence, but it's not really intelligent. It just searches fast and brings back
Yeah,
a lot of results.
it gives you insight is the key word that I have with it. That's what you get from this data is the insert that the agent can get from this data.
Yeah, it's superhuman intelligence, man. It's like a conglomerate. So I like this. Okay, so then this makes a lot of sense because if things change in our world where it becomes fragmented, all of a sudden, I don't know that small brokerages can make it as easily anymore. It's going to be a lot more difficult.
So you're right, but that doesn't mean they can't make it because they might think of things we haven't thought of yet.
That's true, which pushes us to innovate. So
It
regardless of
pushes
what
us to
happens,
innovation.
I feel like, dude, I feel like this is maybe, hold on, let me take this through. I feel like number five is where we would start, which is like, guys, I think it's time to innovate and transform where we're at, right? Because if we do that first, then we're forced the regulators to regulate the things that we've come up with, right? Which then
Yep.
I think the opposite would happen instead of creating the fragmentation, I think it brings us all together, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. We could reverse this. Saul, good job on creating this.
No, thanks.
You know,
So yeah, I think
Tristan,
you're right.
you bring up an excellent point here, where you found one of these futures that you're attracted to, the innovation one. And when we reduce this now to our publishing plan, where we're going to have an article just focused on that one, there's going to
Hmm.
be a reply section where we can start to gather your kind of input to that particular type of feature on the infographic. So
Yeah.
that's what we have in mind, publishing wise, of turning this into a series of articles that focus on one of the areas that hopefully stimulates conversation with people out there
Mm.
to give their input. And I know you certainly are going to make a lot of replies to this particular one. What once we get it down to an article, a
Yeah,
four
I
or five
agree.
hundred word article, not a 10,000 word article, Tristan, like you wanted to
John,
reduce to one page. I
you're
told
funny,
my
John.
wife that, and she said, "You better quit that guy."
That's so good.
Yeah.
All right, so I feel like we're we've slowed down a little bit as far as lawsuits are concerned or the noise that they're making. But I know that everything's going to blow up in a few months. So where are we heading? What should we be concerned about?
Yeah, so you say blow up. I'm hoping Christmas slows everything down.
Yeah,
Let's get
that's
through the
funny.
summer months. Let's list and sell some real estate.
Yes.
And then let's let these things transpire. But as they come up, people can come to us because we're going to, as we've been doing here, we're going to look at what's going on and then put it into this context that we've built. so it's easier for people to understand. And where we're headed in the near future, more of
Hmm.
the same. It's more of the what's going to happen in 2027 that people need to be thinking about. But again, I'm more of look at what you're doing every day and look at ways to integrate new technologies into what you do. So
Mm.
how can you take technologies and integrate? You're still going to do the same kinds of things. You have to take listings, you have to show properties, you have to write contracts, you have to do marketing. It's the same stuff,
Yep.
but how is the technology going to assist you in doing that?
Very true. I think that's probably the key question to everything that we're doing now because it
And
allows
I
us
think,
to.
yeah, I
No,
think
go ahead, John.
MLSs have to step in there and take a hard look at what they can do to stay in the picture, because the MLS, in my opinion, is such an essential organization. The policing efforts of the data is enormous. You can't do without that. So there has to be some type of a balance where they can balance the needs of their constituents, whether they be the brokerages or the agent. But the MLS to me is still such an essential player, no matter which avenue we go in.
Well, yeah, you go back to that diagram. The center of that diagram, the way we see it, is the MLS because all these entities that are playing, you see right there at the top, the listing journey and the possible destinations. All of the big companies rely on MLS to keep the data fresh, updated, accurate, status. And if you didn't have some method to do that, you could
Hmm.
have technology where all the data is entered, but who makes sure that the data is up to date, that when a status changes, it's registered in the system, that when it's sold, it is appropriately marked as sold. Where does that data reside when you want to go back and do comps? And so the as we look at the major players out there, MLS is still a critical piece, and I believe that people think that that all MLS does is put data together, and that can be done now with other technologies, broker-owned technologies. The fact is that it's very difficult to do in a cost-effective way what MLSs do. And this data is so valuable because the MLSs aggregate it and they police it and they create mechanisms and training so that people know how to utilize an MLS system. And maybe there are too many MLSs in the country. You'll hear people say that. And I never see, at least never say never, right? Is I see very slim possibility of there ever being a national MLS, and people like that idea of a national MLS. The problem with that is real estate is local, and you have and realtors, real estate licensees are all competitors. So to get them to agree on everything is not easy,
I
right?
agree. Where where do you think the MLS has the biggest weakness that can cause a problem for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The biggest weakness, I think, is people's lack of understanding of the value of MLS,
Hmm.
right? They don't see that because for the most part, they're too wrapped up in what they do day to day and they can't see beyond the day to day. And I used to say this affectionately about my real estate licensees that used to work for me and
Hmm.
those that we've serviced when we were involved as technology companies is they eat what they kill. And when you eat what you kill, it's hard to be have your mindset on what's going to happen 3 months from now.
That's true, man.
five
That's
months
very
from now,
true.
right? And
We're
so
all
you let
about now, now, now. It's the culture we live in.
it's exactly right. And it's a necessity based on the compensation structure in the industry, which is you get paid based, it's contingent compensation. Contingent compensation. You don't get paid unless the deal closes,
Yeah.
right? So if the deal doesn't close, you don't get paid. And so you can only put so many into escrow if you're lucky enough to do the escrow, we call it in California, right? And then to nurture those through to completion and to earn your and to draw to that's the wrong word too, to receive your commission, right? This takes guidance on the part of the professional, of the real estate professional. And
Yeah.
so to think about the things that we talk about, I mean, it's really a luxury for us to be able to talk about these things the way we do because
Very true.
we're not out there pounding the pavement. We did once, but we're not doing it today. Now you still are to a degree, Tristan, in a different way. But John and I are old timers, right? So we have the luxury of being able to look at this and speculate. And we have the value of hindsight. We say hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you guys are helping out a lot because just this article that we put up here in the chat, real estate industry at a crossroads, that's the type of knowledge that we need to be exposed to more because um, it doesn't frustrate me anymore, but it used to when I would see it in lab coat agents where people are like, what the hell does this matter? Right. Now I'm just like, damn, like we really need to educate everybody a lot more because all of this does matter because by the time we realize it, and you all know how I feel about Compass, by the time we realize it, Compass is already in a position where it's too late for a lot of people. The same position that Zillow was in years ago, but we complain about them now, but we didn't complain about them then, right? It's the same thing, right? This is why it's important. We need to pay attention to these little things.
Well,
So,
I think you're right. And I think another point that people don't give enough emphasis to is the fact that your customers, your clients, they're reading about this and they're seeing
that's the
it.
most important one, dude. You're right. That's it.
And so
That's
as a real estate professional, I want to be able to talk about it because I know my competitors can't.
yeah,
They don't know enough about it. And
that's
so if
it.
I do, it's a differentiator for me. I'm demonstrating expertise. One of the ways that you build trust and confidence in a sales relationship is you demonstrate expertise. You show people you know about your profession, you know about your business. And so all these changes, if I can just grasp them and put them in a context and I can convey that to my clients, that's something that all of my competitors can't necessarily do, and that gives me an advantage.
I like that. All right, John. That adds another like paragraph to this. So maybe you can go up a page and a half, okay?
Well, some of the agents out there are going to have to deal with a consumer that comes to them and says, "Hey, I was just over in Google, and Google is showing listings. How do they do that? Google's not a real estate agent." Well,
Mm,
they need to know the backstory is that there's Google and House Canary have cooperated, just like EXP and House Canary have cooperated. So
yep.
agents, like Saul said, they have to be informed. They have to be more professional in the advice they can give it. And I think when Google steps in, boy, you could hear a lot of chatter out there from agents who aren't informed.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even bring this up, but dude, you went there a little. So, and I think I'll give you my take on it. Google, I think that's crazy. I don't know what can happen there, right? But when I took a look at Bed Bath and Beyond purchasing or combining with Fathom Realty, I've looked at that deal back and forth. I looked at what happened earlier on in the year when Bed Bath and Beyond lend they lent money to Fathom Realty early on and then decided to just buy them out. I think it's a stupid deal personally, and I think the Fathom agents are going to suffer long term. But that's the type of stuff you need to be looking at,
That's
regardless of your
innovation.
opinion, right?
That's
Regardless of your
innovation.
opinion. Yeah.
Innovation doesn't always work,
No,
right?
exactly. That's it.
And, and so that's innovation. And I want to take you back to the 1980s when Metropolitan Life Insurance bought Century 21 because they saw synergies. They believed that there were synergies. And Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith, which was a stock brokerage company, got into the real estate business. And Prudential, which was The Rock, an insurance company, got into real estate. And Sears, do you remember Sears? So Sears and Roebuck,
Yeah.
they bought Coldwell Banker and they owned Coldwell Banker and they bought Dean Witter, which was a stock brokerage house. And they bought H&R Block because they saw these synergies. And that's the same thing with the Bed Bath and Beyond, I think, and Fathom is people are seeing synergies. Now we know with all those consolidations and acquisitions that I mentioned, they didn't all work. Matter of fact, they all kind of devolved back to the way it was. There's a lot of money, a lot of effort, and all of that going on around me as a real estate broker at the time. I saw these big players that were getting involved in multi-licensing, being able to offer multiple products to their customer base. So I thought, if I can't do that, I'm going to be out of business. So I got a Series 7 General Securities license. I got a Series
Right.
24. I was a securities principal. I got a life and disability license. I became a certified financial planner and I became a certified tax preparer in California. And so the people would step into my office for taxes. And before they left, I could have had an opportunity to sell them real estate, to put money in their IRA. And so I increased my revenue per client because I thought that's what all these big guys were doing. Well, they couldn't
Mm.
exist, and that turned out to be for me the way I existed, and I was able to do it at the boutique level where the big
Hmm.
companies weren't able to do it at the grand scale and level that they believed they could do it. So it worked well for me. And so I think we're back to that slide at number
Yeah, we
5 where we
are.
talk about innovation and new
Mm.
ways to do things. And when you look at something like Fathom and Bed Bath and Beyond, know that somebody sees a value there. And to me, it seems like the value they see is in being able to generate sales from, one way back and forth. I mean, somebody buys a house, they need to buy bedspreads,
Just
right?
just the data points alone, right?
Yeah.
I see that. I definitely see that.
Saul, I got to ask you a question. Uh, when you got all of those licenses, was that where you're able to assemble and make all that money so you could buy those two boats in the background?
To buy the 2 sailing ships in the back.
Yeah, really.
There's
I wonder where you got the money for that. Okay.
That's a whole different webinar, John. And that's more than 2 pages. So I'm not going to have that. Oh, that's good. Guys, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it. This is great.
Hey,
Good
great to
seeing
be
you
with you.
again.
And everybody who jumped in, thedataadvocate.com, please jump on that one. John and Saul are going to release white papers incrementally so that you guys don't get inundated and can break it down and read those. So those should be awesome. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you, Tristan.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.
Thank you.